Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. Talent growers. The TalentGrow Show has turned 3. And I guess we're a toddler. And hopefully we're not in the terrible 3s. But I thought that I'd take the time in this episode to recap our first 3 years and to think about what's coming ahead. I am Halelly Azulay, and I'm your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow. And I'm so grateful that you are listening to this show. And if you have been listening to the show all along, you've made it possible for me to reach this important waymark. And thank you for that. So over 3 years of the TalentGrow Show, we have now reached episode 78. So 77 episodes behind us and lots more to come. And the topics that we focused on have been pretty wide-ranging, but always related to how to develop yourself as a leader and how to develop yourself in general. So we've talked about leadership in all kinds of ways, and leadership as it relates to leading on the C-suite or in a high-level position, and CEOs, all the way to how to be an effective first-time manager. We've talked about communication skills and speaking, networking and strategic relationships, feedback, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, and how to have difficult conversations, happiness, resilience, neuroscience, trust and organizational culture, learning and mentoring, about emotional intelligence, about the future of work, about generational perspectives, about mind hacking and changing your habits, about coaching and about workplace politics, decision-making and thinking tactics, career development and having a side hustle, courageous leadership, but also courageous followership, and negotiations and more. And we've had all kinds of guests, leadership experts, authors, consultants, and coaches, but also a top banker, a chef, a philosopher, neuroscientists, people that are actual managers working on their management skills, best-selling authors, coaching gurus, mentors of mine, lots and lots of interesting guests. But also, of course, we've had some solo episodes that feature yours truly sharing some of my insights. And recently, we launched the new format called Ask Halelly, where I respond to listener questions or questions that I've received from audience members or workshop participants or members of the media. The top most downloaded episode ever is episode 47, which features Chris Voss, who is a former FBI hostage negotiator, and he shared negotiation tips. That one is just by far the most downloaded episode ever. Have you listened to that one? My top episode this is very hard. It's like asking a parent which is their favorite child. I have 77 episodes that I'm very, very proud of. This is the 78th. Hopefully I'll be proud of it as well. But I would say my top moment in terms of my pride in any of my episodes is definitely with episode 51. And of course, the pride started when I landed this guest. This was an episode featuring John Allison, one of America's top bankers and top CEOs, and was the CEO of BB&T Bank. And he was actually a guy that was considered to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve. I mean, this is, first of all, just a high level person who's very, very busy, has lots of people trying to get time with him. And the fact that he agreed to be on my show and give us some of his time was a huge achievement. But personally, he's a person I've held in really high regard, almost, like a personal hero, a business hero of mine. It's one of my dad's heroes. And although I don't always want to call my dad and tell him about every guest that I have, I'm proud of all my guests. This one, I really wish I could have called my dad. That I think he would have been really proud. So I hope if you haven't listened to it yet, that you'll go check it out, episode 51. We also did an interesting episode in episode 50, right before that that was what I was calling the flipped episode, where I had my friend Margarita Rosenfeld interview me about me, why I started the show, what I do for work, some of my goals and things like that. So if you want to learn a little more about me, that's the episode to catch. I'm excited about some upcoming big names, like Daniel Pink is actually slated for a recording session with me in the coming days if you're listening to this episode as it's being released. And I cannot wait to share that one with you. He's one of those guys that I really look up to. He endorsed my book, actually, and that was a really big, proud moment for me in the past. And my favorite listener feedback is definitely a young woman who wrote me to tell me that she was listening to the show, getting lots of value, and there was this one really difficult conversation she needed to have with someone at work, and she was dreading it. And she was going to actually just brush it under the carpet and ignore it until she heard the episode with Susan Scott, where we talked about how to have candid, difficult conversations. And she listened to that episode on her way to work, and then she went ahead and had that conversation. And she said that it went so much better than she would have ever expected. And she credited that episode with helping her a great deal. So I'm really proud of that. That's exactly what I shoot for. I try to create this content for free so that I can share it with as many people as possible and actually help them in their own workplace communication and leadership situations. This particular episode is also, well, at the time of recording, it's not finished yet, but I think that at the time of release, it will be finished, a makeover. We're getting a new look, right? We're grown up now, 3 years old, and actually my business just turned 12. And I decided that my show logo is connected to my business logo. My business is TalentGrow, and the show is the TalentGrow Show. So changing the logo of my business and therefore changing the logo of the show and the cover art. So I can't wait to hear what you think of it. But first, I thought that I would share with you 3 key lessons or insights that I've had from my first 3 years. And each of these lessons is encapsulated with 3 letters. So it's going to be the 3 P's, the 3 C's, and the 3 more P's. So the first 3 P's are pursue your passion and purpose. The 3 C's are cultivate curiosity and connection. And the last 3 P's are practice toward progress, not perfection. So let's dive in a little bit on each of these. The first 3 P's are pursue, purpose, and passion. A lot of people fall into work that is not that satisfying to them. And a lot of times we have a passion or maybe a sense of purpose around something, but we feel like we don't have time for it. And I really, really encourage you to not give up on any of that and to continuously pursue ways to go towards your purpose if you're clear about it. And if you're not clear about it, to move towards clarifying your purpose, because I think that that gives you such an incredible sense of well-being, and it helps you really orient your actions towards it. And your passion, whether it is a paid passion, in other words, if your work is work of passion, kudos to you. But sometimes it's something that you do on the side, and that's cool too. And sometimes you start it on the side, and then eventually you figure out how to shift your work to be more aligned with your passion. So for me, my purpose is clear to me. I know that my work in the world is to help as many people as possible recognize, become aware of what their strengths are, what their passion is, what their talents are, but also to really find ways to optimize and maximize how they use those in their daily life, and especially in their work, if possible. So a podcast is a fabulous way for me to help me achieve this purpose, right? Because if I'm trying to reach as many people as possible, what's been amazing is I've been able to reach way more people through the podcast than I can through my work. So for example, in my first year in podcasting, I was able to reach thousands of people. In the second year, I was able to almost triple that number. And then in the third year of podcasting, I was able to double the number of downloads that I had in the first 2 years combined. So we're growing. And my goal this year is actually a very lofty goal. I don't know if I'll reach it, but it's always good to set a really hard goal, something that seems a little bit out of reach. And my goal this year is to 10x my downloads. 10x. That's big, right? And it's scary. When I say it, I feel really scared, but that's a good sign. When you have a goal that kind of scares you a little bit, but not terrifies you to the point where you're not taking any action, then that's good. That's exactly how it should be. You should move towards things that seem out of reach, but not completely. That you can see it on your horizon and you can motivate yourself to move towards it. So you can always help me reach my goal by sharing this podcast with other people, right? I mean, if you tell 2 people, aren't we tripling my downloads right there? So I hope that you will help me. But I really want to help you. So what's your purpose? And what passion project are you pursuing? I hope you'll think about that. And you definitely are encouraged to let me know. You can send me an email or say something in the comment section. And I have fallen in love with this podcast. It is such a passion project. I love it. And I hope to move it into what actually becomes one of the main avenues of my business. All right, so that's the first 3 Ps: pursue, purpose, and passion. The second chunk of the 3 lessons learned is the 3 Cs, which is cultivate, curiosity, and connection. I love to learn. I am a very curious person, and I love to connect with people, and I also like to connect ideas. So the podcast really allows me to leverage those strengths. And then, of course, I get tons of pleasure from sharing what I'm learning with others, because that's the kind of work I do, and it helps me achieve my purpose. So my challenge actually is always narrowing down my curiosity, because it is so wide-ranging, and curating it down to what I've set out as the purpose of this podcast, which is to help leaders be the kind of leaders people actually want to follow. So that narrows it down to say that everything that I share on this podcast should be related in some way to your quest to improve your leadership skills. And I sometimes think maybe I'm overly narrowing it. Maybe I don't need to. Maybe I should broaden it to include more of my curiosity and not just leadership. I'd love your opinion on that, actually. I'd love to know what you think. And then, of course, networking is a major topic of interest for me. I'm writing about it more. I'm speaking about it more. And for me to connect with the guests or reconnect, many of them are people that are already in my network, and bringing those connections to you, but also connecting with listeners and expanding my network. It's so much fun. I love it. So my question to you is, what are you doing to cultivate your curiosity and to cultivate your connections? How are you pursuing those goals? And then the last lesson learned, the third 3 Ps, is practice towards progress, not perfection. I definitely have a little bit of a perfectionist monster in me. Perfection gets in the way of progress, because when you get hung up on making something perfect, you get bogged down to a point where it no longer adds value. There is a point at which there is diminishing returns for continuing to perfect something before just shipping it out. Definitely one of the things that I've been working on very much with myself is focusing on the progress I've made and not trying to make everything perfect, but making it always better. There is a book by Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer called The Progress Principle. And they've done research that shows that people experience a much greater sense of happiness and well-being when they notice small steps of progress towards a goal and celebrate that, rather than having sort of only a celebration when you reach the goal, which is often actually very demotivating for people. It does not yield the kind of happiness that they expected. And often they feel deflated or surprised by that. So focus on progress. Make baby steps. Look at the small wins and recognize them and celebrate them. We are all on an ongoing journey of development. I love the work of Carol Dweck, who wrote about the growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, where we view ourselves as a work in progress, everybody around us is a work in progress, and we always have to just keep challenging ourselves to grow and to learn and to adapt. And the way that you grow is by pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, because that's where we stretch, that's where we grow, that's where real progress is made. If you're in your comfort zone, then you're just doing the things you already know how to do, and you're doing the things the way you've always done them. And in that way, you become complacent and stagnant, actually, rather than making progress. So if you want to maximize your gifts and grow and challenge the people that you are helping as a leader do the same, definitely push them outside their comfort zone, but not in their panic zone, just in their stretch or learning zone. We have an episode coming up actually about this in a couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that. So here's my question to you about this learning lesson. How do you notice and celebrate progress in yourself and others? Well, those are the 3 lessons that I've learned in my first 3 years of podcasting. Well, that's ridiculous. I've learned a million lessons. But those are the 3 lessons that I wanted to share with you in summary. Coming up, I'm really excited that one of the achievements I've had is also being a guest on other people's podcasts. And it's something that I plan to pursue doing more of in the near future. And if you have a podcast that you like to listen to, in addition to the Talent Grow Show, that you think I would be a good match for and a good guest for, drop me a line. And if you know someone who is actually the host of such a podcast, make an introduction, right? Hey, cultivate connections. But I am excited that if you're listening to this as it's being released in the beginning of March, then you should definitely listen to an episode of a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire that is going to be released on March 10th. And that's a podcast by John Lee Dumas. This guy actually is one of the most successful podcasters out there. He has a daily show 7 days a week. Can you imagine? Did you know that in 2018, I decided to move from twice a month to every week? This is a huge, huge progress step for me. But that by itself, doubling my output, has been a great challenge and I'm loving it. But can you imagine 7 days a week? Wow. Well, anyway, it's a super competitive podcast, actually. He has people applying and sending an audition video, and he gets thousands of applications for the 360 whatever episodes he does a year. And so I'm really proud that I was selected, and we recorded my episode, and it will be released on March 10th. So go check it out on Entrepreneur on Fire on March 10th. And I look forward to taking this podcast to the next level, to 10xing my downloads, to bringing you even greater, bigger, more interesting guests, to giving you more types of shows with the Ask Halelly format and maybe other types of formats coming up, and to make this show reach even more people and help make a positive impact on more lives. I thank you for listening. You make a very positive impact on my life by listening, and I really, really am grateful to you. And by sharing with others, you're going to make an even bigger impact on more people, help them develop their leadership skills, help me achieve my purpose. And for that, in advance, I am also very grateful. And if you're not subscribed on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, as it used to be called, please go ahead and do that. That would be great. And in the meantime, I'm always here to listen to you. I am always open to your feedback, and I'd love to know what you'd like to hear about. But until then, I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at Talent Grow, and you are listening to the Talent Grow Show. And I thank you, and make today great.
Thanks for listening to the Talent Grow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.